Hello everyone and welcome to this week's coding challenge. In this one I'm going to be making a music video generator script that will basically input lyrics and then give us a nice video, and I'm going to be using just a whole bunch of lyrics here to create a music video. So before we get started, I do want to remind you down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly on the channel, and down in the description you can check out the GitHub link for once I finish this and upload it. Be sure to follow us there, and in the description follow us on Instagram for other updates. If you want to help support the channel, you can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP. Link in the description to join us on YouTube and help us out. And make sure you join the Discord server, link in the description as well, and you can get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, and much more. So today we're going to be making a lyric music video generator. I have this song here, which I have mixed myself, and I have all the lyrics from Tom Barclay's Stab Me in the Eye. And basically I have a basic plan set up, and I'm going to be first giving the user a place to paste in the lyrics, so I can basically just take all of these lyrics here, paste them into a script. Then I think what we're going to do is we're going to have a composition, and we're going to set up markers, and each of these markers is going to have the lyrics. Then the user can distribute these markers out to where they belong. And then at the end, maybe some options for like font style, animations, and things like that. Welcome Grossrillion to the stream / live video. And if this is your first time watching the coding challenge video, I'm now doing them through Twitch, where I do them live on Twitch and then upload the stream or recorded stream later. So you can also follow us there for other cool stuff and beat producing. So to get started, let's make a basic UI. We're going to start by creating a window. We've got to get our thinking glasses on. This window, I'm trying to think of how we're going to format this, but I'll go ahead and just start coding it. Make it a palette type window, lyric music video generator, undefined size, and we'll set the orientation equal to a column. And then let's have, I'm trying to think of the best way to bring in the lyrics. I think it might be best to have a text file. So let's just leave a note, use a text file to bring in the lyrics. And in that case, I'm going to quickly create this text file. I think I should just be able to copy all this. And I'm going to remove chorus, verse, things like that. In fact, we can probably, actually no. I was going to say we could probably remove all the white space here, but let's just leave it like that. And if we come across a blank line, then we'll just ignore it. So we'll just call this stabbed me in the eye.txt. Thank you for the follows, Grossrillion and Tofu Mart. So we have this text file, and the goal is then to be able to read that into the script. So we'll need an area to input that text file. Say group 1 is equal to our window. We'll add a group, undefined size, and we'll call it group 1. Then we'll have our file edit text is equal to group 1. And we're going to add an edit text box, undefined size, and we'll just say select lyric file. Then we'll need a button so you can click on it and load up the file. So we'll say file button is equal to group1.add a button, undefined size, and we'll just say like ... And I'm going to make the size of that a nice 25 by 25 square. And just so we can go ahead and start seeing this as we program it, I'll link to After Effects. I'm going to center my window and then show it. So now we have that. Let's make this edit text a bit bigger. So I'll say file edit text dot size is equal to, let's actually make it like 250 by 25. That should be enough, maybe a little less. 210. That should be enough to display that. So the first row will be where we select a file. The next row could have like an animation style. So I'm just going to copy and paste this to try and get this going a little bit faster. Don't need that. We'll have a style dropdown, and that's going to be a drop-down list. And what kind of styles are we going to want? Let's just have like we could have them organized by like opacity, position, scale, and then maybe have it some kind of randomization to fade in the lyrics, have them position in or scale. But now that I think about it, I think it should always probably have a nice fade in. Well, I guess you could scale from 0, or you could position from off screen. So we'll stick with that for now. I should probably also save this. I'll make a quick GitHub repo for this. Just call it lyric music video generator script. Generate lyric music videos quickly. Then we can save this and have a nice backup copy. So I'll publish that, keep it public so everyone else can see, and this will be open source. And then we can save this to that. Lyric music video generator. Alright, so now we need to fix our style dropdown. Style dropdown dot selection will set to be 0, so it selects the first thing. Fix that. So now we have a style. We should probably have some text so we can know what that dropdown is for. So we'll say style text is equal to group 2. We're going to add some static text, undefined size, and we'll call it style. And what else? Maybe we can even say animation style. Actually, I want to make this look a little bit prettier. So we'll set the size of our dropdown to be a bit bigger, maybe 180. That's too big. I just want it to kind of match the size of the above window or the above group. And that should be good. Next, maybe one more row for settings. Well, actually, we're also going to need a background layer because if we're making a lyric music video, we want to use our cover art or something else as a background. So we're going to have a background item selection group and then maybe like a font group or color group. So I'll say, copy this, change this to group 3. Of style text, we'll say BG text. We'll have our BG dropdown. Have these be the same size. And then we'll, instead of having just a predefined list, we'll fill up this dropdown with a function called get footage items. And we'll call this background layer. We haven't defined get footage items yet, so let's quickly do that. Say function get footage items. And I'm viewing the stream on my phone so I can see comments, but it's buzzing every time I get a notification. So I'm just going to put something under that. Get footage items, we're going to get, let's go ahead and, for example purposes, import some images. Just some random stuff. we want anything that's footage or has a file associated with it. It could even be a video technically. We want to be able to select that and use that as our background. So let's say items, and we're going to fill this up. So that's going to end up being what we return is our items. And we're going to loop through all of the items in our After Effects project. The way we do that is by saying var I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to app.project, the number of items, increment I by 1, and we want to say if, I believe, app.project.item I.file, if it has a file, then we'll push items. We'll actually push the names, and let's create a global variable to store these. So we'll have items, item names. The names are going to be what we use for the dropdown, but there will be a parallel array which with each index matching the name appropriately. And whenever we run this function, we'll set these back to nothing and then populate them. So instead of filling items, we'll fill item names and items with app.project.item I and the name of that. And we'll return item names. Let's see how that looks. So now you can see we have all of our items there, just these images, and these could be our background layers to choose from. I'm going to slightly adjust the drop-down size so it fits here. And now I'm going to make a button group just so we have that. Our button group is equal to a window. We're going to add a group, undefined size, called it button group, and we'll just say generate button is equal to our button group, add a button, undefined size, and we'll call it generate. So now we have the basis of this setup. I think this could be good for now. To control the color and stuff like that, I could do that in the user interface, but that might be a bit complicated. So what I'm going to do is create, like, in the setup of the entire project, I'm going to create a null with some expression controls. So we can control, say, the text color, and the font may be a little bit more difficult, but we can control the font with sort of a workaround for now, where we just choose the font we want as the last selected font. So there's that. Let's call that good for the interface. We need to program the lyric file part where we click this button and select our text file. So we'll take our file button and say onClick is equal to a function, and we need to create a we'll just call it temp text file is equal to a new file, and then we'll say temp text file dot, actually we'll say temp text file equals temp text file dot select. I think it's choose. It's like a select or choose dialog for a file object. Open dialog. Yeah, I believe it's open dialog. Dot open. And we need to give it a prompt. Select your lyric text file. The filter, we want a text file only. So say asterisk.txt, and multi-select, we only want one, so we'll say false. Now, if our temp text file does not equal null, Then we want to fill that in to this here. We want this to display the path to our file. So we'll say file edit text dot text is equal to our temp text file. Grab the fs name, which is the entire path plus the name of the file. We'll replace the weird $20, which needs to be replaced globally with a space. Let's try that out. So we select this, and that's not quite working. Let's try open DLG. There we go. Now we can go to our desktop. And select our text file, and now it's displaying here. I actually also want to change, I guess, let's see if that's a valid file. We'll alert file edit text.exists. I want to make sure that these slashes are in the right direction. So select that file again, and it does exist. Okay, that's good. Now we can go ahead and start working on the generation. We can say generate button dot on click is equal to a function, and we'll say if the file with the path that we have in our text does not exist, then we want to say please select a lyric text file first and return false to quit out of that. If not, if we have something valid, we can go ahead with the main creation. Oh, one thing I forgot. We totally have to have the song imported. So let me grab that. We need an option to choose our actual music file as well. So we can put that above our animation style. Instead, I'll just copy group 3. We'll call this music group. And instead of get footage items, we'll get our audio items. And I'll duplicate our get footage items, change the name to get audio items, and I need to actually refer to the scripting guide for this one. Let's see. We need to look at AV layer. No, sorry, not AV layer. A AV item. Footage missing, frame rate. We want to check if it has audio is true and has video is false. So if has video is equal to false, and app.project.item I.has audio is equal to true. And we're also going to need, instead of just pushing those into item names, we'll have audio names. Then we'll make sure those are cleared every time we search for our audio files. Populate those. Return the names for the dropdown. So now we have, as you can see, the option to choose that. The dropdown's a little bit short, but that's fine. Now back in our generation, we can basically make our main function and use all of our selections as arguments. So I'll just create a function call called main. We need to give it our lyric file. So I'll say file and file edit text.text. Next argument is our, this needs to be changed from background layer to audio track. That might give us a bit more room to add to this. But we need that. So I'll grab audio, which should probably be defined before all this now that I think about it, just to be safe. We'll get our audio index of our dropdown, which is also needs to be changed to audio text, audio dropdown. Use our audio dropdown.selection.index. Then we have our animation style, which will just be a string. So we'll say styledd.selection. And then lastly, we need our background layer, which will be our images array. And then index background dropdown.selection.index. So now to make sure all these are coming in correctly, I'm going to create my main function. We have our text file. We have our audio item, our style string, and our image item. I'm going to alert each one of these. For the text file, I'll alert the FS name. I'll alert our audio item.name, our style string, and our image item.name. This will let me know if all that information is coming in correctly. So if I hit generate without a file selected, it says please select the lyric file, text file first. So I'll go select that, select my audio file, my desired animation style, and my background. And you can see we have an issue. Style DD selection. Maybe we should put these up here first to check if we're getting the information we want. Audio DD. Let's see what this gives us. Audio item. Oh, yeah, that's because I haven't given it the right one. Footage item, opacity, images seems to be giving us the problem. Oh, it's because it's not called images, it's called items. There we go. Change this from images to items. I just called it the image item in that. So now, if we run this, we should be getting all of this information displayed inside of our main function, file, audio name, opacity string, and our background. So that's perfect. First order of business inside of our main function is to create a begin and end undo group. So app.begin undo group, we'll call this you know what I just realized? So part of this workflow is we're going to create markers after they hit generate. It's going to create all the markers, the lyrics, and then we need a secondary basically button. We need like a secondary button once they've set up the markers. So once they hit generate, I'll finish this end undo group. And we'll call this lyric music video setup. And before we go into our main function, I'm going to disable all of these elements. So I'll say file edit text dot enabled is equal to false. Our audio dropdown, style dropdown, our background dropdown, and also our, what is it called? File button. Make sure they can't change that as well. So now when we hit generate, those will all be disabled. And what I want to do is have another button. Well, generate will also need to be disabled. We'll have a secondary button. So I'll need to make my button group dot orientation equal to a row. A second button which says like finish. Or we'll say apply markers. And we'll by default set this to enabled equals false. And what this is going to do is part of the second step. So let's preview this. First they select their file. And once they hit generate, that's going to generate the composition, the setup, add the background image, and any of the animation styles to like the background and stuff. But then it's going to create all their markers with the lyrics attached, line by line. And once they're done applying the markers, they'll click apply markers, and it's going to finish the whole setup. So let's go ahead and set up the comp actual setup. So now inside of here, we're first going to create our lyric comp. So this is equal to app.project.items. We're going to add a comp, and I'm going to reference the guide for this. First argument is our item name. We'll just say generated lyric music video. We're gonna make it just 1080p. Pixel aspect ratio of 1. Duration will be our audio item.duration. And the frame rate, we'll just have 30 for now. Let me double check that I can grab the duration of an AV item. Yep, should be good. Now, we'll open this in the viewer last so it generates faster. And after we generate that, we need to import our audio file and our background file. So we'll have our audio layer, background layer. Say comp.layers.add, and we'll add our image item. For our audio, we'll do the same thing, comp.layers.add audio item. Now, we can start kind of slightly testing this. We'll say, select our stuff, hit generate. And it looks like we failed to add our items. That's because we're just using a variable called comp, which does not exist. So now, this should end with it opening the composition up. We have our selected background, which in this case is way too big. We also have our imported audio, whose length matches exactly the comp length. Looks like our comp dimensions and everything are looking good as well. Now, let's fit our background layer to the comp. So I'll say create a function called fit to comp. And we'll say it just wants the background layer. Now I should already have this somewhere. I'm trying to think what I can use to reference it. Probably from an extension. Fit to scale to. Let's see. It uses basically a rect. Here it is. Fit layer to comp. So I'll just say fit layer to comp. Paste this function, which basically just takes an incoming layer And what it does is it calculates this rectangle, which is like the width, the left, top, and the height, and it scales it comparatively to its containing comp to fit appropriately. And this basically means it will fill the bounds. If it doesn't fit perfectly, it's not going to force it to change aspect ratio, which is nice. So if I run this, you can see it maintains the aspect ratio as best it can, and we'll have some black bars if required, but we can fix that later if we need to. So after that, we then need to, I think, just generate our markers. So in order to do that, we need to first grab our text file, and we'll create a variable called lyric array, and each index of this is going to be a different line of our lyrics. So the first one here would be why you got to lie, you've been in my ride, always by my side. So say lyric array is equal to a new array. Then I'm going to grab my text file and open it. I'm going to open it to read it, and we're going to do a do while loop, which is just a classic way to run through a text file. We're going to do something while we're not at our text file end of file. So as long as we're not at the end of the files, we're reading line by line, keep doing something. And that something we're going to keep doing is grab our lyric array and push text file dot read line. And we only want to do this, I briefly mentioned this at the beginning of the tutorial, we only want to add it if it's not a blank line. If there's nothing on this line, then we don't want that information. So we'll say if text file, actually I'm going to create a little variable called this line, because I'm not sure if the method read line actually moves us to the next, so I don't want to check that twice. Say this line is equal to text file dot read line, and then I'll say if this line is not empty, an empty string like this, if it's not empty, that means that we have a nice line of text here. We're going to push this line. Now, to make sure we're getting all this information nicely, I'm going to alert my lyric array and alert lyric array index 0. So now when I run this, select my file and generate, you can see we get a big array of text, but when we look at the very first one, we're going to get just the first line, which is why you got to lie. So that's perfect. We now need to use this array to generate a whole bunch of markers, and we can maybe do it. I'm trying to decide if we should use comp markers or layer markers. Let's just apply them to a null layer, which we'll later use as our control layer to control like the text color. So let's create a null. We'll call this our control null is equal to lyric comp dot layers. We're going to add a null whose duration is our lyric comp dot duration. We'll say control null dot name is equal to our control null. And now we're going to loop through our array of text. So I'll say var I is equal to 0. I is less than our lyric array dot length, increment I by 1. And now I'm not super familiar with creating markers, but we should be able to figure it out pretty quick here. I believe it's just a keyframe, but let's look at marker value. I think we have to use a marker value and apply it to marker. So I'm going to create a variable outside of this loop called this marker. Set it equal to a new marker value. And I think each time we can just say this marker dot comment is equal to our lyric array index I. And another thing is we don't want these all to stack up at the same time. We don't want to add, say, 30 markers to time 0. we want to actually divide them out pretty evenly amongst here. So the way I'm going to do that is we're going to need a variable called marker time. First marker is going to be at 0 seconds, and then we need marker time increment, which is going to be the first marker we add is going to be at time 0, but then we need to find the average between which we can distribute the markers. The way we should do that is take our lyric comp.duration. For example purposes, let's just say it's 2 minutes. How many of these do we have? 53, 52, 51, 50, 49, 48. So we have 48 lines that we're going through, 48 lines of lyrics, and our comp duration is 120 seconds, so we divide that by 48, and our increment would be every 2.5 seconds we want to add a new one. So we'll take our lyric comp.duration divided by lyric array.length. And then that should give us how often we need to increment our marker. And now we need to set the value of our marker. So we'll say control null dot property marker and we'll say dot set value at time. The time is going to be our marker time, and the value is going to be this marker. Then after we've added this, we're going to take our marker time and increment it by our marker time increment. Now let's go ahead and save this and run it and see how we're going. We can just get rid of these, select our lyric file, hit generate. Looks like we're getting caught up somewhere. We added our control null, but I don't think it's creating our marker correctly. I'm going to add a couple of right lines to see how far I'm getting. If you guys are ever struggling to find out why your code isn't working, and you think it's something simple but you don't want to ask, you can just add these in between every line of code and figure out how far it's getting. And say I only get to C here, I know that something's wrong right here. So we'll run this, select our file, generate. We're getting only to B. So our new marker value creation is actually the problem here. So let's take another look at the code. Marker value. Maybe we have to pass something into here, otherwise it doesn't work. There we are. So we have, as you can see, a whole bunch of markers with all of our lyrics. If you zoom out, it gets pretty overwhelming, but you ideally want to zoom in to just about here. And probably gonna have to use my headphones to properly tune this here, tune the timing. But now that we've generated all these markers, what we want the user to do is then move the markers to where they belong. In this case, they don't even start for a little bit. So here, the lyrics actually start way later. So maybe we should add a feature of where the lyrics start to make things a little bit easier. I don't want to make it too complicated, but I wonder if there's a way to select all of these and move them. Can I access the properties down here? Nope. Is there really no way to batch select markers? That's a shame. So maybe we can move past that for now and then work on something different. But I think we should add we should really add a start time. Like what time the lyrics actually start. And by default, we could just have it set to 0. Let's add it to the animation style group because there's a bit of room we could add there. So let's say in our style group, we're going to add a bit less room here for this. I'm going to say lyric start text is equal to group 2. We're going to add an edit text, undefined size. I'll just say lyric start, and we might just have to make another row for this, but we'll have lyric edit or lyric start edit text is equal to group 2. Add an edit text, which I just realized the other one should be a static text, undefined size, and we'll say 0 by default, but we'll set the characters to 2. We'll just say start seconds, and that will be a static text. So hopefully that's not too bad. We could just increase the size of everything else here. Make this 180, 200. That's 2000. And make the background layer one a bit bigger. 70. So there's that. Now we have our start seconds. So say the lyrics start at 20. We should now be able to do that. So we'll add that as an extra argument. After our animation style, we'll have our, we'll say parse int. We need to have an integer. We'll parse the lyric start edit text dot text. Then in here, after our style string, we'll say start time. And now to adjust our algorithm, our marker time needs to be set to start time. And to adjust now, because let's say we're starting at 20 seconds, our duration of our comp is not the same. We need to say comp.duration minus our start time, or in this case we have our marker time. So now that should give us, let's double check when these lyrics start. Actually, let me turn this on for you guys.
Why you gotta lie?
So
Why you gotta lie? Why you gotta lie?
about 21 seconds is where they start now, which will give us a lot more control, hopefully, to be able to more quickly move the markers to where we need. Let's undo all this and try it again here. Oh, we entered past our audio track. Select our text file. Start seconds, we'll say 21 seconds, and hit generate. Now you can see that our lyrics are going to start way closer.
Why you gotta lie? You've been in my
And really, it's already very close to where they belong.
You've been in my ride, always by my side. So you stab me in the
The great thing is the math sort of works out on its own, where we don't have to worry about the placement of the lyrics too much. So it does almost feel automatic. And as you can see, this needs to be disabled as well. So we'll say lyric start edit text enabled is equal to false. Now our apply markers, once we hit that button, we need to sort of do the final touches on everything, which is creating our text layers at our marker points using the comment from each marker, and then adding the text, the animation, and color control. I believe that's everything I can really think of for at least this first iteration of this. So let's grab our apply markers button and create an on-click listener, anonymous function, and the only thing we're going to check for, well, Yeah, we're going to check to make sure they have the composition open. We want to make sure they didn't just like move somewhere else and get distracted to select their comp. So say if app.project.active item is equal to null, or if app.project.active item is not an instance of a comp item, then we want to tell them, please select your comp with lyric markers. And then if that's the case, we'll return false so they cannot continue. They can go select their composition before we do whatever we want here. So we have our apply markers button. Let's just create a function called apply markers. And we don't really need any, actually, yeah, we do. We want the animation style, I believe, is all we need to worry about here. So I'll grab my style dd.selection. And I'm also going to reverse all of these here. We're going to re-enable all of our drop-downs and things and re-disable our apply markers button, so it reverts back to the original state the UI was in. And now we need to have our function called apply markers, which has our style string. And just so we have reference in here, we're going to write a little note for our style string guide. We have opacity, position, and scale, which will just be like fading in and out, moving in and off frame, scaling up and down from 0 to 100. Those are just going to be how we do things here. We're going to know that our control null is our first layer, so we need to grab that first. Control null is equal to app.project.activeItem.layer1. And we know that's where all of our markers are located. So let's go ahead and create a couple of variables called this lyric, or we can say this text lyric. I'm also going to need a color control effect. And now let's loop through all of our markers. To access our markers, let's first see how we can do this. Let's alert our control null dot property marker. Let's check the num keys. That should give me, I believe, the number of total markers that are set up. We apply our markers. We have 48. Perfect. As you can see, once we press that, it's back to default for the UI. So we have all of our markers. We're going to loop through them backwards, because as we go through each marker, we're going to create a text layer, and then we're going to remove the marker for cleanup purposes. So I'll say var I is equal to control null dot property marker dot num keys. I is greater than 0. Decrement I by 1. And for each time, we're going to create a new text file. So let's say this text lyric is equal to, let's actually create a variable for our comp so we can type less. Just call that the active item. Comp.layer1. And this text lyric is equal to our comp.layers. We're going to add a text. The text is going to be our control null dot property marker dot key value at I. We want to grab the comment, I believe. Then I'll grab this text lyric and set the endpoint equal to the marker key time. So let's go ahead and try this out. I also forgot, let's add another begin and end undo group for this. App.begin undo group. We'll just call it markers to lyrics. And we'll say app.end undo group. Now let's go through our setup real quick. Select that. I think I need to rerun that. Hit generate. Apply markers. And as you can see, we're now getting our start times are accurate, and we have our lyrics, but they're all stacking on top of each other. So to change the out point, let's say this text lyric dot out point is equal to it needs to be equal to the next marker. Let's zoom in here and figure it out. So we start here. The first one we apply, the endpoint should be at the very end. So we should ignore that. Then the next one needs to be ending at the start time minus 1 frame. So we'll say if I is not equal to basically if it's not the first one, if it's not equal to our initial case, which is the number of keys, in this case 48, then we want to say this text lyric dot out point is equal to I plus 1 minus our comp dot frame duration. And then after this, we'll want to make sure we delete all of our markers. So let's try and run this again. Starting at 21, generate. And we'll apply our markers. Now, it's looking a lot better. Let's have a nice preview of this.
Why you gotta lie? You made it my right, always by my side. So you stab me in the eye.
Great. I don't like how it goes to black there, so let's try not subtracting a frame. And really, the cherry on top of all this would be to be able to select all of the fonts and stuff that we want and the sizing. So maybe we'll program in a few preset fonts.
Sharp on my guys, the ones that never ever gonna leave you far behind. Things ain't gonna change when they leave for some time.
So it gets a little bit off time as it goes on, but that's just because there's pauses in the song that and we haven't moved our markers as we should. That's working really well. Next, we're going to create. We need to remove the marker. But we should. So my issue is we're referencing the next marker after we've already processed it. So let's remove all the markers afterwards. We'll do the same thing here. We'll run through the same loop of our markers, and instead we're just going to say control null dot property marker dot remove key I believe is the preferred way to do that. Perfect. Then I want to take my control null and move to the beginning, the very top of the comp, so they can have access to that. And I'm also going to want to make sure it's selected so they can view the color control we're about to apply to it. So I'll say selected is equal to true. First, we'll create our color control effect. effect. This is going to be equal to our control null. Inside of the effects, we're going to add a property called Adobe Color Control. And the name of this, we're going to set the name to be text color. Then we need to have an expression applied to each of these. So we should do this before we create the text layers, just before our whole loop here. And we need to apply like a fill. Let's just take this one text, for example. We want to apply a fill and then link the color to the color control, on this layer. So expression controls, color control, and we'll just get the code here for what that's going to read. And we'll paste that here. So we'll say this text lyric dot prop. We want to add the tint first. So say this fill effect. This fill effect is equal to this text lyric dot effects. And I'm not 100% on the property name. I think I can check in here. This might have a reference to it. It's a tint. Okay, just a tint. The way I can quickly grab the match name of this is just open a new script and say app.project.activeItem. This is layer 48. Layer 48 dot effect1 dot match name. So it's just Adobe Fill. Sometimes it's like it has a 2 in it because it's a newer version, but I just wanted to double check there. We'll add a new Adobe Fill. And the color property we need to get as well. Say property 3 dot name is color. You can get the match name to make it more reliable. And we will set this fill effect dot property Adobe Fill 0002 dot expression equal to the expression we previously copied, which is this comp dot layer control null the effect called color control and get the color. So now let's go ahead and undo that. Just create a new one. Start time is 21 seconds. Apply our markers. We're getting an expression error. Why is that? Effect name color control is missing or does not exist. That's correct. It's called text color. Let's try that again. Now, should be able to control all of the text color from this one control, which is perfect. So now it's just a couple of housekeeping things to make this seem a little bit better. We still need to use our animation styles. So let's do that. I want to apply an animation style both to each text layer and to the background. So before I do all this, I'm going to change my default font it's going to use to something nicer. Let's use a charcuterie block. And inside of our apply markers is where we're going to do this. Let's just say I'll create a function called apply text style. We'll have our layer and our style string. We'll have a switch statement for our style string. In the case that it's opacity, we'll do one thing to the text layer. In the case that it's position, we'll do another thing. And in the case that it's scale, we'll do another thing. If it's opacity, we're going to want to apply opacity keyframes to the beginning and end. One thing I also just realized is the text position hasn't been set either. The two things that are really limiting here are font and positioning. But for now, let's take our layer and say set values at times. So we can just hit everything in one line of code here. Our times are going to be our layer.endpoint, our layer.endpoint plus 1, and then our layer.outpoint, and our layer.outpoint plus 1. The values of our opacity is going to be 0, 100, from 0 to 100, and then from 100 back to 0. So what this means, let's go ahead and test this out. After we create our text layer, let's just say apply text style to this lyric or this text lyric and our style string. If this works, it should basically create a fade in and fade out for each of our texts. And we have opacity selected. Apply markers. If I look at my layers, I do not have any opacity changes. Let's alert our layer we just want our style string. I'll write the line in case this appears 100 times. Run this again, see what the issue here is. I feel like we're not getting the opacity string itself for some reason. Oh, I didn't spell it right. So, okay, it's coming in as opacity. Why isn't it setting the values? Oh, of course. I'm not even grabbing the property. Silly me. So say layer.property, Adobe transform group, property, Adobe opacity, and then we'll set the values of the opacities over time. Now, if we apply our markers, now if we just go straight in and preview it, it's still not working. Let's double check the code for set values at times. This needs to be adjusted. Let's make sure we're getting in here, I guess. Say layer.name, Adobe transform group, opacity, set values at times, endpoint, outpoint. I don't see anything wrong with it. Let's try it again. You're just getting the string opacity coming in. Does the switch not work for this? This is spelled correctly. That's really strange, but if that's the case, let's just say if style string is equal to opacity, then we do this. No, it's still just displaying opacity. What is wrong with style string? Does it need to be converted to a string? Is layer valid? Okay, now it's working. I think it needed to be converted to a string. That's very bizarre. So now, let's go ahead and have a preview.
I gotta lie, you've been in my ride, always by my side, till you stab me in the eye.
Okay, that's cool. Now I guess we'll just use if statements, I suppose. Do the same thing for opacity and scale, or sorry, for position and scale. Gotta get rid of these right lines. Instead of opacity, we'll use position. Instead of opacity here, we'll use scale. We're gonna use the same times, but the values need to be different. We need arrays for these, going from 0, 0 to 100, 100, 100, 100 to 0, 0. For the position, we could get a little bit more creative and have it come in from different sides. So I'll say rand int is equal to math.random times 3 or 4, I think we should go with. And this all needs to be floored. So math.floor. This will generate like a random number between, well, let's find out. This will generate a random number between 0 and 4. So I have 0, 1, 2, or 3 coming in. That will be one for each direction. So if this is the case, let's do a switch statement for this. We'll say rand int. If it's 0, we want that to be from the top. If it's 1, that'll be the right. If it's 2, that'll be coming from the bottom. And if it's 3, that'll be coming from the left. Now let's take our code here. We'll create 1 inside of each of these cases. And the timing of these keyframes is fine. The thing we want to change is these values. And we're going to want to grab the original position. That's going to be equal to our layer dot position dot value. And we're going to be going back to the original position. And then if we're coming from the top, what's the position here for the top look like? Basically, let's come from -100. So take OG position 0, we'll have the same on the X, and we'll say -100. And this will be OG position 0, -100. Then I'll go ahead and copy and paste this to the others. Now, the mirror of this is the bottom. So instead of -100, we're going to want to say app.project.activeItem .height plus 100. And that will push it 100 pixels below that. And I just realized maybe 100's a bit, we should go 300. because our text might be larger in some cases. It really depends on what the last position they selected was. So that should be good for that. If we're coming from the right side, we want to use the width, and the original position should be coming from the Y. And this should be app.project.activeItem.width plus 300. Like that. And then it will be a mirror for the left case. Instead of that, we'll just do negative 300. All right, let's go ahead and try this out. I think we should be good. First up, let's do a position. Generate, apply markers. It is chunking a little bit slower, which makes me think that it is doing the positioning. Hopefully that's just how fast it's rendering. That's very quick on and off screen.
Why you gotta lie? You've been in my ride, always by my side. So you stab me in the eye. Why you gotta lie?
Awesome. Now let's try one with the scale. I also noticed the fill needs to be, we should set the fill to be white by default, because red just doesn't look as good.
Why you gotta lie? You've been in my ride.
Awesome. So back in our expression setup here, we're gonna set our color control effect.property1, which is the color value itself. We're gonna set that equal to white. Now, let's add motion blur. Lyric, sorry, app.project.comp, that's our name. Motion blur is equal to true. Need to make sure I know what the layer is. So for every text layer we create, this text lyric.motion blur is equal to true. And one other thing I want to do, I want the text to be able to fit no matter what. So I have a script somewhere. Might not be on this computer, we'll just check GitHub. Let's see. I basically want to have it so that no matter how long the lyrics are, they're going to fit. And I have an expression which will achieve such a thing. Just have to find it. Didn't know it was this far back. There we go. AE auto width text. All we got to do is apply an expression. To the source text, or sorry, to the scale. So I'll say this text lyric dot property Adobe transform group dot property Adobe scale. Set the expression equal to this. And the width is going to be our comp.width times maybe 80%. And the height is going to be our comp.height times 65%. This should keep like all of our text in the same sort of framing and scale it appropriately. Now, to be a little bit more practical, I need to get the actual cover art for this. And I think we're going to run this as a finished test here. I might just have to grab it from here. Is that really the biggest resolution? I should have a bigger one. Hold on. Here we are. Okay, so are we ready to do this for reals? Let's set up a font that we're going to make sure we like. So whatever you choose as the last chosen font is what it's going to appear as here. Thank you, Adobe Creative Cloud. This is pretty standard, so let's use this. And we're going to go through and do this whole thing here. Actually, we're going to do one more test just to make sure that this works. See, it didn't work. Is it because I didn't end this? Transform group, scale, set the expression. Is it the motion blur? How far did we get? We didn't even create that. So our color control didn't get changed, I don't think. We didn't spell it correctly. This is why we check before we do the real thing. Okay, now we appear to be working. If you wanted to go the extra mile on this, you could even automate it so that it generates multiple iterations, which could totally do that. So now all the text is sort of scaled within one area. I don't know if I like that or not, but for now that works. It'd be a lot more to then add in like other stuff. So now let's do the real deal. We have our lyric file, our audio file. Let's do a basic opacity. Our start time is 20 seconds and our background is Smite cover art. So I'll generate this and now let's line up the lyrics real quick.
Why you gotta lie? Why you gotta lie? You've been in my right, always by my side. So you stab me in the eye. Why you gotta lie? You've been in my right, always by my side. Why you gotta lie? So you stab me in the eye. Oh, yeah, that's how we assure that we are fine. Peace cannot be found without searching for the sublime. Vision blurry, but still no way to hide. Too dedicated to the woman I call me mine. Now we try to find a happiness by telling lies. I would never ever switch. Different is why I smoke. Chop on my guys.
I need more room.
The ones that never ever gonna leave you far behind. Things ain't gonna change when they leave. I would never ever switch up on my guys. The ones that never ever gonna leave you.
It's a little bit difficult to navigate.
On the outside we are sure that we are fine. Peace cannot be found without searching for the sublime. Vision blurry but still not know where to hide. Too dedicated to the woman that called me mine. Now we try to find a happiness by telling lies. I would never.
The goal though is to make this like way faster than
I would never ever switch up on my guys. The ones that never ever gonna leave you far behind. Things ain't gonna change when they leave for some time. The difference is why I smoke. Words from the page that I wrote. Rumors cannon on my mind so quickly that I always choke. Part of me, that bitch I broke. Set the mountains to stay afloat. Lost my friends, they climbed the rope. Lost my friends, they lost my friends, they climbed the rope. Was that a mistake? I say gotta love.
As you can see, sometimes the lyrics go way faster, so being able to manually adjust is definitely important.
I say gotta lie, even in my wrong. I say gotta lie, even in my right. Always by my side. You stab me in the eye. Why you gotta lie? Gotta lie, even in my right. Always by my side. So you stab me in the eye. Gotta lie, even in my right. Always by my side. So you stab me in the eye. You try to love.
This is way faster than having to do everything by hand.
You try to left and right and now I gotta pretend like I give a fuck. When I know truly in your mind you're really stuck. Try my best to make you happy and you threw it all away. All because we were always tweaking, thinking about the pay. I wrote this in one night to show you how much I care. You're my brother to the end. You're my brother. You're my brother to the end and that's when we all float up there. Yeah, I've never been the same. My emotions not as tame. I think I've hit a train, yeah, bitch, I felt. Hit a train, yeah, bitch, I felt. I think I've hit a train, yeah, bitch, I felt. Why you gotta? Yeah, bitch, I felt. Why you gotta lie? Why you gotta lie? Why you gotta lie?
Almost there.
And am I right? No, it's by my side. So you stab me.
And then we just hit apply markers. And now it will line up with all of those changes we made. And then we can do manual adjustments afterwards, like if we want to scale up the cover art, or excuse me, add like a nice backdrop version with a nice camera lens blur, something like that. And then you can just give it, well, for a quick preview, you can do like this. And obviously it's not 100% perfect. We can do more tweaking, but the base whole thing should be working now to make the process a lot quicker. I think we could adjust the fade in and out times of the animations as well to make them a little bit quicker, or also adjust probably the scale of all the text.
And now I gotta pretend like I give a fuck. When I know truly in your mind you're really stuck. Try my best to make you happy and you threw it all away. All because we were always tweaking, thinking about the pay. I wrote this in one night to show you how much I care. You're my brother to the end and that's when we all float up there. Yeah, I've never been the same. My emotions not as tame. I think I've hit a train, yeah, bitch, I felt the pain. Why you gotta lie?
So it's not perfect, but it's very close, and it would just be a matter of tweaking. We could, and I probably will because I would like to use this myself, we could probably go in and add things like preset font selections, maybe options for auto scaling and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's going to be the lyric music video generator. Let me push this to GitHub, and you guys can go try it out for yourself. Link will be in the description of this YouTube video. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. Down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly on the channel. And down in the description again, you can check out the GitHub code for this, just uploaded. Try it out for yourself. See if I've made updates since this video, or make updates for yourself by creating a fork. Down in the description as well, follow us on Instagram for other updates. You can also join our Discord server, get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, and much more. And if you want to help support us on YouTube, link will be in the description. You can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP. Thanks again for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.